Hey DIYers, this is Frank at Alarm Grid. We're back in the Alarm Grid lab working on the 2 gig GC3 self-contained wireless alarm system. You'll see below here we have our old Go Control panel, and this is the newest of 2 gig systems. We're going to show you today how to program the 5816 OD. This is a outdoor wireless door contact. It's the only fully outdoor rated, weatherproof door and window contact that we're confident will work great with the GC3. You can see it is a little bit bigger than most contacts, but generally these are designed to be put on gates or sheds, anything outdoors that you want to protect. You want to know either you want to set as a burglary zone and have it trip an alarm when it's opened when the system is armed, or just as a general monitor zone, maybe like a gate, so that you know when that's open and you can get a text or email through alarm.com. So we'll show you how to pop this open, get the batteries in, and then program it in the system. All right, so first we'll take a regular number 2 Phillips head screwdriver. There's a regular sized stainless steel Phillips head on here. We'll go ahead and turn that counterclockwise, loosen that up. And get it completely out of the back plate. Okay, once you have that out, we can take our little back plate and put that down, along with the screw. We can take a smaller flathead, and there's a board in here. We can just kind of leverage into the back side of that board and get the board out. And then we have our battery compartment. So you'll see that there's plus symbols on the bottom here, the little tamper unit, so that once this cover is open, it'll throw a tamper trouble on it. So we'll go ahead and throw our batteries in. We have the plus symbol on the bottom, so we'll put our larger ends down on each of these. Once you get your batteries nice and snug in there, this unit will be powered up. So there's a couple things in here I just want to mention before we close up. So there's actually 3 small screw terminals inside of this unit. Just like a regular 5816, this can be used as a multi-purpose device. You can set it with a normally open wired contact or a normally closed wired contact. And as long as you have that programmed to loop 1, you can actually see in here we have the center terminal is for your C or common. On the left is your normally closed, the second wire of a normally closed sensor or contact. The right one is for normally open. So if you did want to wire out to a secondary sensor, something like, we don't actually have one right here, but any wired contact, any normally closed or normally open contact. So again, normally open, the right 2 terminals, and the normally closed, the left 2 terminals, and you would program that zone to loop 1. Today we're going to be using this as a fully wireless unit with the the included magnet, and we have the sensor and the magnet as just a fully wireless sensor. So that will go to loop 2, and I'll show you how to do that in programming. So if you were also wiring this out to something else, you could do that now before closing up. For right now, we'll actually just go ahead and push this all back in. So we have our, the arrow here is facing towards the bottom away from the screw terminal. You'll notice that there's a little screw hole. You want to line that up there first, push that in nice and snug. Put our magnet down, and you'll want to put this back plate back into, back onto the back side here. Flip it around, and then we can put our screw back in. So we'll want to take the screw. We can line this back up. We'll tighten this back in. Once that's nice and tight, we can then start our programming. So we'll go ahead, put this down with our magnet, and we can pop into programming. So to get into programming on the GC3, with the top right 2 gig symbol, enter our installer code, not to be confused with our master. The default installer is 1561. If you've already changed the installer code, you can just use that new code. We'll go to System Configuration and Wireless Zones. So we'll hit, we don't have any zones on this system right now, so we'll hit Edit Zone on Zone 1. You can also, if we go back here, you can also just click into any of these fields and it'll bring that over to here as well. So we'll start with the sensor type. So depending on how you want this set, if you want it to trigger an actual alarm and report to the central station, basically trigger an alarm during armed away and armed stay, we can set it as one of these first few zone types: entry exit 1, entry exit 2, or perimeter. If this is on, let's say it's on a shed, and when your system is armed, and if this is open, you want it to be an instant alarm, we would set that to perimeter. There's also another zone type, and today, let's say we're setting it up on a gate. We can actually set this as a no response type if you want, and then you can create different rules on alarm.com for it to send you text alerts when it's faulted. That way, every time it's open, even when the system is armed, it won't necessarily trigger an alarm, but it'll basically just let you know on sensor activity, and you can do that through the alarm.com app. So again, you can do no response type here, or whichever response type you need. Perimeter would be an instant alarm. Entry exit would give you a delay period on the way in and out. Since we're going to use this as a gate, we don't want it to really do anything except send us alerts, and we can configure those from alarm.com later. So we'll keep this. We'll do sensor equipment type as contact and move down to equipment code. When we're in equipment code, we can move down. This is the 5816 OD. So we'll actually show you, we can use the same equipment code as the regular 5816. There's no other programming differences here. So we can just use that. That's 0637 for the equipment ID. It says HWDW 5816. So that's Honeywell door window contact. 5816 is a model number. So we can bump down to serial number. Here's where we want to learn that in. So we can take our contact, and what we'll do is you'll see the serial number listed on the side. So you can either manually enter that in, or we can auto-enroll. We'll auto-enroll and then just verify that it came in properly. So we'll hit learn, and that'll be listening. We want to take the contact and move it away, and you'll see that it automatically enrolled it in 0141480. So we can confirm that that's actually the zone, or that's the serial number that's listed here on the side. There's also a serial on the inside of this unit if this ever peels off. So you can just open this back up again and view it in there. We'll accept that and move on with our programming. So we have equipment age is always new if it's a new sensor. Sensor loop, this is pretty important. So again, going back to the wired terminals inside here, if you are wiring a normally open or normally closed contact to those terminals, then you want to wire to loop 1. Because this is, we're using this with the magnet and the built-in reed switch, we actually want this to be loop 2. So we'll go back down here. We'll hit this on loop 2. That way when this moves away from the contact, it will trip and throw a fault on the system. If you put it on loop 1, again, that'd be if you have a wired contact normally open or normally closed to the internal terminals here. You can set that up as a secondary zone and use both this on loop 2 and a wired contact on loop 1 as 2 separate zones. And we won't get into that right now, but for today's purposes, we'll just be using this for the fully wireless contact. So we'll move down to transmission delay. As discussed in our other videos, a little bit different than Honeywell panels, but the 2 gig GC3 and its predecessor, the GC2, has a transmission delay, where by default the system will hold an alarm signal before it's sent out. It's a false alarm prevention tactic. We have other ways of preventing false alarms by verifying on multiple phone numbers, as well as you could set this to a delay zone and extend the delay. In this case, it's a no response type zone, so we don't have to worry about any of this. It's not something that will actually trip an alarm ever. So we don't really have to be too concerned, but it's just good to know about it. So we'll set that to disabled to make sure we get that signal immediately. We'll go to voice descriptor, and we're just going to label this as our back gate. So we'll put in back and then gate. You'll notice that as I type that in, you'll see it in the white bar and select it. You want to use that library in the system in order for it to voice enunciate. If you use a custom word, that's fine. It'll work on alarm.com and on the keypad. It will not voice enunciate during a fault, though. So we'll hit done. Sensor reports. Again, this is a no response type zone. If it was an alarm, if it was a shed or something that you did want to protect some lawn equipment or anything in there, we could, just keep this enabled, and we will, and we'll also keep it supervised. If this is in an area where it's far from the home, maybe on the verge of the limit, this should work up to 200 feet from the panel. It may vary depending on walls in between and other interference, but it's about 150 to 200 feet. So usually, if you're within that distance, it should be fine. You obviously want to do some testing after installing it. But you generally want to keep this enabled. That way, if this ever falls off the network and basically the system is not able to ping it during the supervisory interval, then it will throw a supervision trouble, and we'll know about it as both an alarm owner at the keypad and your alarm company will be able to reach out and assist you by getting that report. So we'll keep that supervised. If you're getting tons of supervision errors and it's coming in and out, you can add a 5800 RP, which is a repeater in between the panel and the 5816 OD. But if you were getting it and it was getting annoying, you could disable it if you wanted to. Again, I'd recommend keeping supervision enabled always. So sensor chime. This is where we want to set up an alert for every time it faults. So we'll set it up on Ding Dong 2 with voice so that we get the Ding Dong 2 chime and the voice enunciation of the back gate. So let's return to system config. Back out, we have our summary screen here. We'll save it. And then from the home screen, once this resets, we can trip this and make sure that it's faulting. We'll get the chime tone
back gate
and the voice enunciation. We'll put this back. You'll notice that it didn't show it on the keypad and take the system out of ready to arm mode. That's because this is set to no response type. If this was set as a regular entry, exit, or perimeter, then it would remove that from ready to arm and set it back to, and actually show the zone open here. When it's set as the gate, it'll just simply do the chime and voice enunciation. So that's how you program the Honeywell 5816 OD to your 2 gig GC3 panel. If you have any other questions regarding programming this unit, or any others for that matter with the GC3, you can email us at support@alarmgrid.com, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel.